Have you ever gone to an investment webinar and you were like, what in the actual heck did I just hear? So, this happened to me the other day and it got me thinking about the long term plan when it comes to private money lending. Like, how do private money lenders think about their money over the long haul as opposed to just in the short term? Okay, so background, this webinar that I went to was about a different type of private money lending. So it was about a fund essentially that you loan your money to with a promissory note, and it is personally guaranteed by the operator of the fund. And it's not secured by any other asset. So the only type of security is the personal guarantee, which we all know isn't really worth anything if the person doesn't own anything, right?
Come on, man.
So, background or side note, a lot of people will structure their assets in such a way that if a creditor were to come after them or someone were to sue them, they don't really get anything because they don't own anything, right?
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
And so that's one of the things that comes up even when you have a personal guarantee, because it's like, even if you want a judgment against this person, are you going to be able to recover? Questions I need answers. Now, I'm in this webinar and everything's sounding really good, right? It's like one of those kind of high pressure webinars because the deadline to make your investment was midnight, literally 5 hours after the webinar started, right? Of course. And, the structure of their business is none of my business, but it definitely raised some flags for me. I'll talk about that another day. But you have to pay to get access to the deal. And they were saying things like, look, we are getting 60% returns on our money and 30%, 40%, 50% returns for money that's only being held for a year. There's no minimum investment, et cetera, et cetera. It sounds great. There's people in the chat saying like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm so glad I did this, blah, blah, blah. And it sounds really great, honestly. Like, I was really like, dang, let me get some of this, And so the person who invited me has invested with this group and was waiting to get her return, right? So I want to see what that's going to look like, first of all. But I was thinking about it and I was like, if you're making 60% on your money year after year, like the transformation that can happen is insane. And that's kind of the hook that the person who was doing the presentation leaned on, right? It was like, I had this financial crisis, this happened, that happened, I was left with nothing. And in just 3 years, basically I went from zero to a multimillionaire with these types of investments. And they referred to it as syndications. But it's essentially what it sounded like to me was you are putting money into a fund, and that fund is then giving out very large loans to developers who are using the funds to create properties, and they're getting a lot of free money and rebates and grants and all this stuff. And that's how they're able to give you such huge returns. And I was like, okay, from a short-term perspective, like as a private lender, I love the idea of making 60% on my money in a year. Look, because I don't usually loan for more than 8 months. And so if someone was promising me 60% return in a year, I could extend that 8 months to a year easily. Okay. You ain't got to tip me with a good time. But, the security of it is the sketchy part, right? Like, how do I know, given that the only security instrument I have is a personal guarantee, how do I know that I'm even going to get my money back? And part of the thing that what makes it out of control, there's no minimum investment amount. Like you can invest $500, but the weird thing about it is because you're paying for access to the deal, and I'm not going to tell you how much access to the deal is because apparently it varies by the person who brought you to the presentation, right? And so if you're paying for access to the deal, like let's say I'm paying $500 to get access to the deals, I'm not going to want to only invest $250, right? Because I'm going to want to at least make back what I invested to get access plus a good return, right? And then the other piece of that is because you're paying annually for access to the deals, it's going to incentivize you to invest in more of the deals, right? And so unless you have seen the results and, you have proven to yourself that it works, it feels very, very risky. Like there's a very high chance that you will not get your money back, right? Because even if the deal falls through and you have this personal guarantee, if the person is structured in such a way that you can't access any of their assets and they decide not to pay you back, that's it. I mean, it's just gone, And so I was thinking about, okay, how much am I willing to risk to see if this is legitimate, right? Like that is really the question. But also, I would love to see the person who invited me to that presentation get paid back. Like I want to see the wire out from their entity or their bank account, and then I want to see the return wire. Like I want to see a screen share, right? I don't want to see a printout of a document. I don't want to see a PDF. I want to be on Zoom and I want you to share your screen and I want to see the payout. You get what I'm saying? Like, I want to see it for myself. And so if it is legit, this is what makes me think long term, right? Now, if my goal is to retire by the end of 2028 and I'm making 60% returns using my Sedera, my self-directed IRA, that's beautiful because I can be building for future me, right? So after 59.5-year-old Ashley, building that up and making sure that that's going to be enough to sustain me in those later years, but also because I can also invest my own money right now. Like I can invest my savings, I can invest my business income, right? They were even saying you can invest with a credit card. And I was like, goodness gracious. So if I can invest my own savings right now, that could really speed up the process, right? 60%. And if I'm reinvesting that over and over again, and I really calculate it out, that is a crazy accelerator, right? And so this is how you want to think about your deals, right? It's really a backwards planning exercise. Like if I'm trying to get to early retirement by 2028 and I know how much I need to be making per month to sustain myself, like where am I at and what is the gap? And how many loans do I need to do at what interest rate to get to that end goal? And how much time do I need? And what loan amounts do I need? Like you can literally calculate all that out to figure out in the short term, what do I need to be doing? In the long term, what do I need to be doing? Where does my money need to be sitting in between time, in the meantime, right? Like not just having your reinvestment strategy in place, but also thinking about when I'm not actively in a loan, where is my other capital sitting, right? Where's my lending pot sitting? Is it in a high yield savings? Like, is it in the stock market? Where is it, right? To make sure that all the money is working all the time. Like these are the types of things you have to think about. And I've seen some private lenders get anxious, when they're not in a loan because they're like, I don't know like when my next opportunity is going to be and my money's just sitting there. And it's like, well, no, your money shouldn't just be sitting there. You need to also have a plan for what job that money is doing when it's not being loaned out to someone. And so that's just an idea of how, inside the mind of a private money lender and the types of things they're thinking about from a numbers perspective. 60% in a year is astronomical. Okay. It's one of those, it sounds too good to be true. But one thing that I have learned over the past few years is that just because something sounds too good to be true does not mean it is too good to be true. And I know people always say, I hear all the gurus like, if it sounds like this and it acts like this, then it's probably this. Like, not necessarily, and I'm learning that there are people who have done investments that I did not previously know about or have access to, but that doesn't mean that there were scams, right? They've had great success with that. I've had people say to me, like, real estate investing is a scam. And I'm like, what is the scam? Please inform me, right? Like I've done this. Please tell me where the scam is. And so there's a sort of harmony that needs to happen between the skepticism of this is new to me, right? This sounds unfamiliar to me. Let me explore. And the other side of you that's like, whoa, this sounds too good to be true, right? Like I need to really do my due diligence here and be careful so that I don't hurt myself and lose my money, right? Because at the end of the day, no one's trying to lose money at all, right? It's not the number one rule of investing, never lose money. And so I'm working and finding that harmony between being skeptical, which is my natural state, and doing the exploration and doing some work and talking to people to find out, does this sound right to you? Does this look right? But also being like, okay, maybe I need to embrace this and be open to the idea that maybe this is possible and maybe this is just a beautiful blessing that's falling into my lap. So something to think about. In the meantime, keep calm and lend on.